role, you know what I mean?
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Enright. How are you?
Pretty well. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. My name is Anna. Nice to meet you.
Well, nice to meet you too.
Thanks
Yeah.
for speaking to our club today. I'm really excited for your presentation.
Oh, it's my honor to be with you.
Thank
Absolutely. Thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. I think we're just waiting on our president.
Ah,
She's got
yes, yes. We have to wait for presidents, right?
she's got a sweet little 6-month-old baby, so
Oh,
sometimes she has to juggle some mom duties before she logs on.
absolutely. That takes precedence, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Are you actually? But I'm kind of the tech
Oh,
person. Are you going to use your share screen for today?
I'm not. I'm just going to talk to you. Yeah,
Okay.
we're going to keep it simple.
Beautiful. Then I don't need to do anything.
How about that? See, this is great. Wow, very good.
Hey, Judy, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Oh, good. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Hi,
Lots of-
Enright.
Hi, Jill. Jill is our incoming club president. So,
Ah, very
Hi,
good.
everyone.
hey, Jill.
Hi, Dr. Bob. Thanks for
Hi.
joining.
My honor to be here. Thanks for asking me.
And down there we have our one of our newest Rotarians, official, Jamila.
Oh, very good.
Hi, everyone.
I'm so glad you're a fish, Jamila.
Well, you know, I'm about to pay my dues. I just got the email, so I'm gonna go in and pay the dues. Thank you.
Hi, Maureen.
How's everyone?
Doing well. I was just saying it's really nice to have you two be official. It's really nice.
Thanks. Hi, Jamila. Congratulations on joining.
Congratulations to you too. I'm glad we came in at the same time on
Sure.
everything, elected and coming into Rotary at
go.
the same time.
Jamila, I was going to tell you, I watched the meeting the other night, and you know Natalie from St. Joseph's.
Yes.
My
Yes.
sister, who I think you met, is the vice principal there.
I didn't know that. Well, no, I think you did tell me that. You
Yeah.
did tell me that. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Let me
It
get
was a nice meeting to see, you know, just what surround us and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of gray hair, Maureen. No one told me that that's part of the deal. I thought it was just like when you're a president,
Oh,
you know, the president of the United States, you look really different very quickly. I was like,
Yeah.
what's happening? What is this? Like, what? There's a lot.
Girl, I got all my new gray hair when I wrote my thesis. That was a journey.
Where did you get the degree?
My master's degree is from San Francisco State, and it's in equity and social justice and education.
Oh,
is
wow.
it?
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it is.
Hello.
That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a weirdo. I have a BFA in musical theater and that master's degree.
I'm sorry. We don't do
Just when I thought you couldn't be better, you just got better. Look at that. That's awesome.
It's how I know not everyone was there. I know Judy was there the day that I presented it to the club, way when I was being groomed to join. And I think I talked about that because that's like the whole foundation of Quinn and Street Project is, you know, arts for social justice, but so they think they're just, you know, playing drama games. Sneaky social justice.
I think you need to get your presentation back because I haven't seen it. It sounds like
That's,
a good
Jamie has said the same thing. She was like, I wasn't there. And I was like, well, a lot of people were, Jamie. I don't need to be blathering at everybody all the time.
Well, that's great. You know, where I work, we're working on environmental justice issues, and
Yeah.
that would be great to have you part of that conversation.
Sure. Yeah. I would love to talk about that. Devin just sent me some sort of Google invite about that I haven't read. I accepted because it came from Devin, but I have not read what it is. But let's see. Yeah, I think we're actually, Jill, are you our president today?
I am, guys. So
That's
you'll have to
right.
bear with me.
That's right, because Maya's got baby duty and Jamie's out of town.
Mhm.
Where's Maya?
Oh, Maya's here too.
Hey, I'm kind of here.
I was gonna say she's still gonna make you do it though, Jill.
Well, I'm here with this guy.
Hi, Mason.
It's gonna be his nap time in the middle of this.
Hi, baby.
Towards the end.
With his four-legged brother.
He's smiling for them. Say hi.
Sweetheart.
So I'm kind of here. We'll see how much he lets me. But thank you all for being here.
Yeah,
And I believe in you, Jill. You got this.
got this.
First of many.
I know, man.
First
This
of 50 maybe.
Easy
Well,
peasy.
it's going to be a lot of Rotary because I have pre-pets coming up this weekend, pets next weekend. I'm in.
You're gonna live that Rotary life for a year.
Mhm.
but- It's fun. Embrace it.
I guess we should wait a little bit.
We usually have folks that are about 5 minutes later, so.
Staggering in. Richie, what's going on? How are you?
Benefit yesterday. It was so delicious.
Wait, say that again?
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
We can now.
Is that better?
Yeah.
I got dinner from Doreen, recommended the West Contra Costa Boys and Girls Club.
Wonderful.
It was so delicious. Yes, exactly. It was so good. It was for all the meat eaters. I know Anna's not a meat eater, but it was a 12 to 14 ounce New York steak, mashed potatoes, a green salad, biscotti. It was delicious. So I'm giving props to Doreen because I forgot to call and put my reservation in. And of course, yesterday at the last minute, I'm like, oh my gosh, today's the day. And so Doreen, thank you, Doreen, for getting
Oh,
us.
you're welcome.
We appreciate it.
It was a good dinner.
It was so tasty. It was really tasty.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing, Jill. I'm enjoying my leftovers.
Sounds great. And
How are
Lena's
you,
here and
Jill?
Donna. Yeah, I'm good.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Doreen.
Durian.
Maya, how's Mason?
He's good. He's kind of playing independently.
Oh my goodness, he's growing so fast.
He can army crawl, and he's started to get up on his knees and sway back and forth. So he's very close to crawling.
He's performing for us.
Oh yeah. Say hi. He's good though. He's just growing so fast. It's crazy.
Oh.
Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Hi, Tom.
Good to see you.
Hi, Judy. Hi, Jamila. Hi, Robert. I don't know you though, but hi.
Hi.
And
Nice
hi,
to meet
Don.
Our speaker, Dr. Bob.
And Lino. Yeah. And
So maybe we'll wait another minute and then we'll get started. See if we have any other stragglers. I see Hank. Hi, Hank.
How are you? How is everybody?
We're good. How are you?
Fine here.
Good.
he just got up from his nap.
Lucky.
Necessary.
All right. Well, I don't know. Should we get started? Let's do it. All right. We usually like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's all pretend we have a flag somewhere and say our Pledge of Allegiance.
I
All
pledge
right.
allegiance
Pledge allegiance
to
to the flag
the United States of
the United
America,
States of America,
and
and
to
to
the
the republic
republic for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
with
liberty and
and
justice for all.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm taking the reins today because Maya's got her hands full and Jamie is out of town. So I did think of a thought for the day. I thought this was fitting. Dare Mighty Things by President Teddy Roosevelt. It was actually written in binary code, kind of hidden on the parachute that was used to land NASA's rover, the Perseverance, on Mars. I thought that was kind of cool. Some person that likes clues and stuff somehow managed to put that on Mars. And welcome officially our newest members, Maureen and Jamila. Yay! Although they've been with us so long, but it's official. They said yes. And then we have a very, very special guest through the magic of Zoom. And one of the benefits of this virtual meeting is we can have great guests from all over America. So today we have with us Dr. Robert Enright, if I'm saying that correctly. He's a professor at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. He's a licensed psychologist and co-founder of the International Forgiveness Institute, which is a nonprofit dedicated to the dissemination of knowledge about forgiveness and community renewal through forgiveness. So welcome, Dr. Bob.
Thank you for having me. Well, I really appreciate the time here. And I want you to know that I'm very envious because when some of you came on to talk, I saw leaves on trees out there. And I want you to know that on February 22nd, that was the first time in over a month that the temperature in Madison, Wisconsin went above freezing.
Ooh.
So day or night, we had what they call a polar vortex, where we got to see what it's like to live in the North Pole. And I'm not used to that because I actually grew up in California.
Oh.
I'm a Los Angelino. And so I don't know how I ended up here in the frozen tundra of the Midwest, but there you go. Sometimes life throws you a curveball and you try to hit it, and sometimes you don't. And so it's nice to reconnect with you in California. It's some of the happiest moments of my life to be there. And today I am going to talk with you, as Jill said, about a topic that has been on my heart for 36 years, because I have been studying this at the University of Wisconsin, this topic of forgiveness, since 1985. And I started studying it because I became really disillusioned with traditional academia and the questions they were asking. I was hired here in the Department of Educational Psychology to study moral development, or how children grow in their sense of values and virtues. And at the time, the only thing people seemed to study is how children think about fairness toward other people. And I got tenure doing that, and I was a fair-haired lad because I was in the mainstream, and I would be getting different grants every year. And I woke up one day and I asked myself a very dangerous question, a very dangerous question. Who am I helping with my research? And my answer, much to my dismay, was this: I'm helping no one with my research. In fact, I just go to conferences a couple of times a year, and those of us who study moral development pat ourselves on the back and we tell each other how great we're doing. Then we go back to our offices and are quite irrelevant. So I use the term, I threw all of my research over a cliff. And being in a publisher parish institution, which isn't a good thing to have no research anymore, I thought about what in the area of morals could actually help people. And so I thought about the reverse of justice, which is really where social justice is born, actually, which is, what do we do when we're treated unjustly? What do we do to climb out of the pit? And the idea of forgiveness kept coming up, because I thought, you know, when we're crushed by others, if we can learn to forgive, maybe we can get rid of the animosity, the hatred, the burning anger that literally could be with us for the rest of our lives. And we could thrive despite the injustice. And so I looked, and there was no literature published ever on the topic in the social sciences of people forgiving one another, right? So I thought, oh, this is for me, but we're going to have to start from scratch. So I started what's called the Friday Forgiveness Seminar in 1985. And that's still going on to this day. We're meeting tomorrow, right? And the first one was made up of graduate students and some professors. And we had people from Greece and Saudi Arabia and Israel and Taiwan. It was a very diverse group with very diverse beliefs. And we asked 3 questions. What is forgiveness? How do you go about forgiving? And then what happens when you forgive? And I'm an extremely slow learner because, quite frankly, we're still asking those 3 questions 36 years later. What is it? How do you go about it? And what happens when you do? Because I keep learning about this type of thing. And I just want to start, before I answer these 3 questions, at least to my knowledge to this point, it keeps changing. I just want to share 2 quick stories with you to give you a sense of the importance of forgiveness. There's a 35-year-old woman I know who came to me recently, and she said, my husband abandoned me. And I now have to, with 2 children, get a new job. I am crushed by what he did. I know I should forgive, but I have no clue how to do it. She said, I've never really been introduced to forgiveness. Right now, to learn this new approach is just too much for me. I wish I had been schooled in this 20 years ago. And I think it would have been very good for her, I agree, but it's never too late. And then another one was with a man in maximum security prison. I do work in prisons. And we find that about 90% of those who are in maximum security prison have been crushed by injustices that have happened to them when they're children or adolescents. And if you heard some of their stories, they would make you weep. And this one man said to me, who just had forgiveness therapy for 6 months with our research group, and he said, if I had had forgiveness education when I was 12 years old, I wouldn't be here today. He was thrown out of his house when he was 10 years old by his mother. His bed was under cars, his dining room table was trash cans. He got so enraged, he started killing a lot of people. And now he's in maximum security prison for the rest of his life. Had he an avenue for getting rid of the outrage, the justifiable hatred, he wouldn't be there today. But unfortunately, the hatred got the better of him, and now he is stuck there, and he knows that. And so there's a certain tragedy in not being exposed to the idea of forgiveness early on. And so with that in mind, let's take a look at our 3 questions. What is forgiveness? How do you go about it? And what happens when you do? I'm an egghead professor. I study everything I can about forgiveness, at least as published in the English language. And I have come to realize that forgiveness is what we call a moral virtue, which deals with goodness. All moral virtues are goodness that flow out to others. Justice is the attempt to be fair with others. If I ask you to build a table for me for $100 and you do, then my paying you is fair. You are giving me goodness, I am giving you goodness in terms of what's fair, right? forgiveness is a moral virtue of goodness, not fairness, because justice and forgiveness differ. But when a person is engaging in forgiveness, whether it's Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, humanistic ideas, it all comes down to three things. I think we all, regardless of worldview that I've been able to study, there are three components to what forgiveness is. First, you've been treated unjustly by others. That's what got me started in the first place. Second of all, what you do is try to get rid of, through your will, through your free will, your strong will, your goodwill, you try to get rid of resentment toward the other person who was not good to you. And third, and here's where forgiveness is controversial, you try to be good to those who are not good to you. Why would you ever want to do that? That actually sounds outrageous, and was one reason why, when I started studying forgiveness, a firestorm in academia occurred. People would tell my students not to work with me anymore, because I've ruined my career. This is a stupid idea. It's too soft and mushy for hard-headed academia. Students will never do well if they keep with me. And students would ask me, is that true? And I would say, I don't know, it's possible. And it's because this definition was getting me in trouble, you see. But part of the definition is to know what forgiveness is not. Okay? And this exonerates forgiveness to some degree. Forgiveness is not excusing what the other did. What the other did was unfair, is unfair, and will always be unfair. That won't change. You don't excuse when you forgive and say, oh, what you did was all right, we'll just let it go. You don't forget when you forgive. I know we use the term forgive and forget, but we remember in new ways. We remember without the rancor, without the clenched fist, without the cement in our heart. Okay? We may or may not reconcile. And that was one of the big raps against forgiveness when I started studying it. People would say to me, how dare you ask me to forgive when this person is so abusive to me? If I went back into this relationship, it could kill me. And my answer was, reconciliation is not a moral virtue. It's a negotiation strategy between two or more people coming together again in mutual trust. When you forgive, you do not have to trust another if the other won't change, if the other would hurt you. Sure, forgiveness opens up the possibility of reconciliation, but the other has to do the other's part to come together in mutual trust. So you can forgive while someone abandons you and you'll never see them again. How? By getting rid of the resentment in your heart and offering goodness. Well, how can you be good to someone you will never see again? Well, how about a kind word about that person to others? Donating to a charity in the person's name. You see, you can be good to the deceased. You see, you still can be. And then another one that was a big rap against forgiveness when I started was the idea that you, with your bleeding heart liberalism, Enright, will open up all the jail cell doors. You're going to let everybody out who has done bad things. And so with that being the case, you're a danger to society. And my answer was, well, forgiveness doesn't repudiate justice. Forgiveness and justice go hand in hand. If you're with a very insensitive boss, you can and should, if you wish, forgive, but ask something of that boss. Right? If you're in a relationship where someone is continually putting you down, you can forgive if you wish, but then ask something of that person. And then finally, forgiveness is a choice. Forgiveness is not something demanded of you. I have literally never seen a society in which forgiveness is part of the law. The law centers on justice. If you don't stop at a red light, you could get a ticket. Justice is demanded. Forgiveness is not. That's what I like about it. You can choose to do so whenever you wish, and you can choose not to do so whenever you wish, and no one should condemn you for that. Okay? So forgiveness is knowing you've been treated unjustly, trying to get rid of something negative, which is resentment, offering goodness of some kind, kindness, respect, generosity, or even love toward the other person. You do not excuse, you don't forget, you may or may not reconcile, and you don't throw justice under the bus at all. And it's your choice. And that is consistent with every kind of philosophy I have ever been able to study. I think we could sit around with an atheist, an agnostic, a humanist, someone from Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism, and we could all agree. We wouldn't necessarily agree on what is an appropriate kind of issue for which to forgive a person, but we could all agree that forgiveness is what it is. Which brings us to the second question. How do you do it? None of the ancient texts tell us how to forgive because they're not psychology manuals, you see. So what we had to do is go to hundreds of people and ask them about their forgiveness journey and piece it together into a roadmap of forgiving that we call the process model of forgiveness. And I have 3 self-help books for the general public, done deliberately for people to be able to use this roadmap. One is called Forgiveness is a Choice. I deliberately entitled it that so people don't think forgiveness is a grim command. It was published in 2001. Then I have one that's a Socratic dialogue between 2 women, and it's called The Forgiving Life. And then my most recent one is, that was 2012, and then my most recent one is 2015, called 8 Keys to Forgiveness. And one of the 8 keys that's different than the first 2 books is self-forgiveness, because this process I'm about to describe usually is pointed toward others, but you also could use it if you have broken your own standards and you have a certain self-loathing. You can reconnect yourself to the human world by forgiving yourself. So we have 4 what we call 4 units, if you will. Actually, I take the word back, the noun back. We have 4 phases to this, and under each phase we have some units. And the first phase is called the uncovering phase. The second one is called the decision phase. The third one is called the work phase, and the fourth is called the discovery phase. Right? So we're going to go through uncovering, decision, work, and discovery phase. On the uncovering phase, we don't really talk about forgiveness yet. We talk instead about the effects on you of the injustice. We don't talk about the injustice and re-traumatize you. If someone hits your car, we don't say, oh, what was that like when that car hit you and then you broke your leg? No, we talk about the effects that happen to people characteristically when they've been treated very badly by others. Here are some typical effects. First, you carry with you over time an anger that is more than a short, self-righteous good anger. When people treat you badly, philosophers tell us it's good to get angry because you say, hey, I am a person of worth, you can't do this to me. But if that anger settles into your system and abides with you, it literally can last the rest of your life. I have worked with people who are starting to forgive someone who hurt them 40 years ago, and they haven't gotten over it. And that anger can bring you down, because another effect is fatigue. If you're carrying a sack of hatred on your back, or even just resentment, that eventually can eat away, even at your immune system. And so forgiveness can be a way of quieting you inside. Another issue that happens is a person starts comparing themselves to the one who hurt them. That person hurt me, that person's walking around just fine, no problem. Here I am crushed. And that contrast can deepen sadness, confusion, and anger. And then another thing we find that happens to people when they've been treated very unfairly by others, their philosophy of life or worldview can become very negative. An example, no person can really be trusted. Everyone is out just for themselves. Everyone's just out for number one. And I have to watch my back. There's no sense of mutuality, of common care, because that is broken down in the person because the person's trust has been so damaged. So the possibility of entering into a meaningful partnering relationship sometimes is hugely difficult if hurt by a previous partner. When there's unforgiveness because you think everybody else might be like that person, you see how the worldview can become very negative. And so all of this can be very difficult for the person to live well, to flourish, to thrive. And so then we go to the decision phase where we ask, how are you doing? Maybe you're doing fine with a good jogging program or talking with friends or reading good books that have nothing to do with forgiveness. That's great. But if you're not doing fine and you haven't found a way out, the decision phase asks, would you like to try forgiveness? And we go through the definition. Here's what's going to be happening, but you won't be excusing. You won't be necessarily forgetting, but you remember in new ways. You may or may not reconcile, and you definitely won't abandon justice for this if you do forgive. Do you want to try it? Most people say yes, because many people who come to us have tried everything under the sun to forgive, or to heal, and they haven't been able to. And forgiveness offers the opportunity of true healing, which then brings us to the work phase, our third of 4 phases on this roadmap of forgiving. It's called the work phase. Here is where we roll up our sleeves, we hit the forgiveness gym, everybody. We build our forgiveness muscle. That's what we're doing. We're hitting the forgiveness gym. And it can seem a little daunting if you've ever gone into a real physical gym and you see all these whirling machines and you don't know how they work. It can be overwhelming. Well, there are certain moves we make in the work phase, and it can be kind of scary for people because they're hitting the new forgiveness gym. They don't know what it's like. They don't know what they're facing. Here's what they're facing. We first deal with thinking exercises because it's easier to think than to feel. If I said to you, feel compassion toward the one who crushed you, you're not in control of that. You can't just, it's like a light switch, turn compassion on and off. But if I say to you, think of a pink elephant in an orange tree, you can do that. So now we ask you to think about the one who hurt you in 3 different ways. We call them the personal perspective, the global perspective, and the cosmic perspective. For the personal perspective, we rely on what we call the philosophy of personalism. The philosophy of personalism looks at each person and their own subjectivity, their own inner world, their own preciousness, if you will. We look at who that person is as best we can inside the person's own skin. And so we ask the one who's forgiving to look carefully inside the person who hurt you. And we ask you to specifically try to see the woundedness in the heart of the one who wounded you, to look at their history and who has hurt them, who has wounded them, who has been unfair to them, and the reaction, their own subjective hurt. We want you to see if the other is bleeding inside, to take some time to see the other's bleeding, not to excuse, not to throw justice away, but to see someone who actually has walked a walk not very well to such a degree that their woundedness has ended up wounding you. Most of the time we find that that is in fact the case. In fact, it's fairly rare for us to find people who've been deeply wounded by others to not see the woundedness in the one who hurt them. because there's a tendency to pass woundedness on through the generations, unfortunately. I work in war-torn areas of the world that have been in contention for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And for example, when I walk through Northern Ireland and walk through the malls of Belfast, I see angry eyes with the adolescents oftentimes. And I say to myself, that young person is angry and has probably inherited that from the parent, who's inherited it from the grandparent, who's inherited it from the great-grandparent, all the way back to the 1500s, when King Henry VIII took a fleet over the Irish Sea and started colonizing the heathen Irish, right? And I think that woundedness has been passed down the generations. Someone needs to stop that. But for our forgiveness gem, we only ask you to see the woundedness of the one who's hurt you. That's the personal perspective. Then comes the next one, the global perspective. And in the global perspective, we ask you to see the shared humanity that you have with the one who hurt you. Do you realize, and all of us here have been hurt by others, every one of us in this talk have been wounded by others, probably their own woundedness. But you know we share a great deal in common with the one who hurt us? I'll give you an example. I'll give you a humanist example, a biological example. You have unique DNA. Did you know the one who hurt you also has unique DNA? There'll never be another human being like you on the planet. Wow. That should change my perspective on who you are. There was never a person like you before you were born, and there'll never be another person like you ever again. Is that true of the one who hurt you? Yes. If you cut, do you bleed? How about the one who hurt you? Do you need rest and refreshment? How about the one who hurt you? Are you going to die one day? How about the one who hurt you? You have so much uniqueness about you and humanness about you that you are special, unique, and irreplaceable on this earth. Is the one who hurt you sharing that, where that person literally is, gulp, gasp, special, unique, and irreplaceable? Yes. And that takes a while. That can take months to settle in to someone who's forgiving someone who was unfair. And then we only do the third perspective if the person with whom I'm working has what we call a transcendent perspective. And it could be a religious perspective, but something beyond the material, where we ask the non-concrete, the non-biological, as we did with the global perspective. Here's an example. Let's say I'm working with a Jewish person. I would ask this person of the Jewish faith, is it true from your Hebrew scriptures in Genesis 1 that we're all made in the image and likeness of God? And it's actually repeated in that chapter, right? Are we all made in the image and likeness of God? And the person will say, yes, of course. Oh, well, is the one who hurt you made in the image and likeness of God? Gulp, gasp. Right? There's the challenge. There's the forgiveness fitness gem you see right there. And when we put all three together, here's what we see. We see a wounded person, not someone who's so dominant and powerful. We see someone who might be scared, tentative, right? Not sure. We see someone who shares a common humanity with you, who's special, unique, and irreplaceable as you are. And we see someone who shares with you a transcendence, in this case, with the Jewish perspective, made in the image and likeness of God. So who is this person who hurt you? Taking the time to go through these perspectives usually starts some cracks in the stony, cold, cemented heart, where the heart starts to soften a little bit, just a little bit, toward the one who hurt you. And that's the beginning of compassion, which is to suffer along with another person who hurt you and might have meant to do so, but out of a profound woundedness. And the person is more than what they've done to you, you see. And when you see that, you begin to have a little empathy. That's the personalist philosophy. When you step inside of the shoes of the one who hurt you, you see someone more than beastly action. You see someone who has something more to offer in there, at least in terms of potential rather than actuality. But the potential is there for something much greater than those actions against you. And that empathy and compassion can then lead to the next part of the forgiveness, Jim, where we ask you to stand in the pain, to bear the pain. That's not unlike what hospice asks people to do who've lost loved ones. And when you're in mourning, they tell you to lean into the pain. Well, we ask you to stand in the pain. And others before us have done that in the mental health professions. But we do that only when you're strong enough, when your heart is softened a bit, and you see the person in a more rich humanity. And here's what happens when you bear the pain. You are now a conduit of good for that person and others. Why? Because you're not going to throw the pain back to the other, and you're not going to throw the pain back to others who had nothing to do in hurting you. Because one thing I have found in these 36 years is when you have resentment in your heart, you don't just keep it there. There is a tendency to throw your pain and your discontent and your happiness onto others, including our own children. That's why I see the angry eyes as I walk through the malls of Belfast, Northern Ireland. These children did not deserve the pain that started when King Henry VIII had the flotilla going across the Irish Sea and taking the Irish people's land. Yet they have it. And the question is for people who engage in forgiveness therapy with me and forgiveness education, do you want your children's children's children to inherit the built up resentment you have in your heart, which they will? But if you stand in the pain, you now become a conduit of good where you are literally giving a gift to those you'll never meet, your grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren. And at the same time, you are giving a gift to the one who hurt you by not taking the eye for an eye. Instead, you are meeting the person, a capital I, with an I with an I rather than I for an I. That's what you're doing when you're forgiving. You're meeting the other as a person if the other is willing to see the gift you're giving, which is an amazing second chance. When you bear the pain, you are standing there with your hand outstretched, taking a risk, saying, come out of your pit. Let me help you out of your pit. Sometimes people spit on that hand. Some people try to take advantage of you, then you don't reconcile. And then the final point, the final unit of this phase, the work phase, is to being consistent with what a moral virtue is, give a gift to the one who hurt you. And I've already mentioned that. A smile, a returned phone call, an email, a text, a kind word about the person to a member of your family, donating to a charity in the person's name. There are many ways you can show the moral virtue character of forgiving by giving to this person something that's appropriate and safe for you. Then we enter the discovery phase. And in the discovery phase, we do a few things. One is to find meaning in our suffering. Once you and I have suffered the injustices of others, it attunes us to the wounds of others. And I know that for a fact. As I say, I work in prisons a lot. And one message I get, which I find very inspirational, okay, sometimes even from mass murderers, they will say to me, I'm not getting out of here, but I now have a new meaning in life. And that is that I see the suffering of my fellow inmates. And I'm aware of this, which leads to a new purpose in life for someone who's never getting out, which is I am going to help that person. My new purpose in life is to bind up the wounds in others in this jail cell. And remember, my own experience is 90% of those in maximum security prison that we have interviewed have been gravely wounded by others. And you know what? About 40% of them have never talked to anyone about it ever. And so here we have new meaning and purpose. When someone isn't going to go out into the streets and into the byways and go into nonprofit service organizations, and they are finding meaning and purpose, as well as seeking forgiveness from others, because now people ask, gee, if I've been hurt that badly, have I hurt others that badly and I'm not even aware of it? So people like to go to others and say, I'm sorry. And at the end of this final discovery phase, you know what we find? We find that people become cleansed of the poison of resentment, become cleansed internally from the effects that could be with them for the rest of their lives. How do I know that? Because of my third question. What happens when you do? What happens when you forgive? We have done many experimental and control group randomized clinical trials with incest survivors. You know what's happened to the incest survivors? First they say, I'll never forgive that man. You sure you want me in your study? They were very kind to us. They said, no way. We said, come. Suzanne Friedman, who's a professor at the University of Northern Iowa, worked one-on-one with 6 courageous incest survivors, 1 hour a week for a year. And the control group waited. You know what happened at the end of the year? All those who said no to us forgave the man, and they went from clinical depression to non-depressed. The control group that was waiting were still depressed. Suzanne then worked with them one-on-one for a year. And you know what happened there? They went from clinical depression to non-depressed. We've worked with men on a cardiac unit of a hospital, and we screened them for injustices against them. And sure enough, once they began to forgive, there was more blood flow through the heart. Right? We've worked with fibromyalgia patients, women who've been abused in childhood. They learn to forgive and their fibromyalgia symptoms go down. And our most recent publication, it happened this week, was in our maximum security prison. And what we found was when they had forgiveness therapy, they went to normal levels of anger, anxiety, and depression. Their self-esteem went up. And what's astonishing to people in corrections, they ended up with more empathy generally toward people, which you do not see with people in maximum security prisons. We're now working with children in Hong Kong, in Northern Ireland, in Israel, Palestine. One reason is I don't want to happen to any of them what happened to my friend in maximum security prison who killed a lot of people, who said, I wish I had this when I was 12. Well, that's what we do. I literally fly around the world, right, once or twice a year. Right? I don't know if that's going to happen this year, but I'm sure going to give it a try. Even last year, I was able to do it once, where I visit a lot of different areas. We work in Northern Ireland, we work in Greece, we work in Galilee, we work in the Philippines, because I want children and adolescents to learn about forgiveness so when the storms of life come, they indeed will have a protection so they're not crushed. So I'd like to end with just a few points for you in your family relationships, in your friendship relationships. I would recommend that if you are in a close relationship with someone, that you begin talking about forgiveness and what it is and what it's not. Okay? If you're in a partnering relationship, I would urge you to start talking with your partner about the wounds you received while growing up, and be attuned to the wounds your partner received while growing up. You know what that will do? It will help you see the other. Again, this is personalist philosophy in a much sweeter, deeper, and truthful way. Because in any partnering relationship, both people bring wounds into that. And then start by forgiving people from your past. And help your partner forgive people from the past. And then turn to one another, where you can start forgiving each other for the wounds you brought into the relationship. And by then you might be able to share this with others. Children, when they're at an age of reason, who can understand this, right? Other family members, so that a family doesn't have to remain broken. We worked in a hospice situation with mostly 80-year-old women, and many of them, while they were dying and their physical condition was going down, their hope for the future was going up. You know why? They brought family members to their bedside and forgave and reconciled, sometimes after 40 years of estrangement. What frustrates me is this. I have a bottle of pills called forgiveness that is literally a cure for hatred and division. And most people don't know about this bottle of pills called forgiveness. And if we only did, people would be more united, happier, and it would be a better world. So I'd like to stop there and entertain any thoughts, questions, doubts, difficulties, or anything at all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Bob. That very, very profound speech.
Thanks. I think forgiveness is a very profound item. I'm just glad I found it.
I have a question. Is this concept in a way similar to what we're doing in schools when we do conflict resolution with children?
Absolutely not. Okay, and here's why. Conflict resolution deals 99% of the time on the level of behavior, where we talk about the behavior and we're trying to stop the behavior by having a norm that it is wrong. For example, with bullying, there'll be bully rallies, there'll be anti-bullying zones, and they try to create a norm of anti-bullying. But if someone's heart is stony cold, filled with hatred, you have to cure that first before the behavior is going to change. So all the anti-bullying programs in the world, all the conflict resolution programs in the world are going to fail until we can recognize the one who's perpetrating the problem is terribly wounded and take care of that first, and then ask something of the person. And that's what's missing. It's also missing in corrections. I have studied correctional interventions, and the vast majority of it is, you've done wrong, step inside the shoes of those you've hurt, see how badly they feel. Now, doesn't it make you feel badly? Now stop it. No, because there's something prior to that. We have to cure, here comes my bottle of pills, we have to cure the broken heart that's been devastated by injustice. And that's totally missed. And that's a frustration for me because it's not that hard to add that little component. And I think it would make all the difference.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I really find this interesting, and I do have a sort of a comment, maybe a question. It seems as though our society these days is being encouraged to become more angry at one another. I mean, politicalization, commercialization of anger almost, television, social media, and whatnot. Can you comment on that, sir?
I think you're 100% correct. I mean, take a look at it. There's divisions by groups. The personalist philosophy we just went to said there are individuals in these groups who are precious, unique, and irreplaceable, absolutely unique. And we need to get to know them and their heart. If we simply stereotype people as the good people and the bad people, will never get to know who is inside that group in any amazingly important way. And it's totally missing here. Because let's face it, it's very easy to put out a political statement about how the other group is so terrible and we have all kinds of theories about them. And that's not going to solve anything, because in that group, when we attack them as a stereotype, some will fit the stereotype. Many won't fit the stereotype, and we don't see that. And until we see that, we can differ, right? And we can decide to differ and try to vote for someone who you might not care for my voting, but I can still see you as a human being and respond to you that way, more so than your political position. You are more than your political position. Also, if I had to forgive you, you are more than what you did to me, as I am more than what I did to you if you have to forgive me. So I think we need to go beyond the stereotypes, and I'm glad you asked the question. How do we do that? Well, I think we have to put these kind of talks like this on the table and say, there is more to humanity than certain groups to which we belong. And I think that really has to change, and I'd like to see it change yesterday.
I'd love to bring something up, Dr. Bob. I really appreciated the vastness of how much you were able to cover in such a short time with us today, but also just how large this concept can span. Because just while you were talking, I heard some things that resonated with me. I messaged Jamila that I was actually talking to my therapist about yesterday, about how, relationships that we have with our family members and how, our pain is often caused by their pain, but also how you brought up, you didn't use these words, but I'd love for you to kind of talk about how this is related to what folks in my realm refer to as ancestral trauma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, sadly, the ancestral trauma, which was never your or anyone's fault who's the victim of this, do end up with certain effects that should never have been yours in the first place. I truly wish the world didn't work that way. That when we've been beaten on the head, we're the ones that get the lump rather than the one who hit us, okay? And so that ancestral trauma, to simply use those terms and be aware of it, is heroic and half the battle. Just to simply say that is curative, in my opinion, because what you're saying is, I have been wounded by others and I now carry that wound and it's real. Now, what do I do with my wound? And so knowing that, forgiveness then, without letting this person off the hook, okay, that's where justice comes up. The forgiveness we have found can actually counter what has happened in its most traumatic form. And I think that kind of wound, I can't think of a worse wound. Why? Because someone who is supposed to be a protector is a violator. That's even worse than two groups entering into an unjust war, okay? Because they don't know one another, right? And that's still bad. An unjust war is an evil, but for someone who has an obligation to protect and doesn't, that's one of the worst kind of wounds. But that's why even thinking about labeling that I have a wound truly is heroic. And the forgiving pathway is heroic. And you do know, when we started this, Suzanne Friedman and I started this, and it was published in 1996, so a quarter of a century ago. Here's what the mental health professions were saying about incest. I'm a licensed psychologist. We as mental health providers must be honest when we have incest survivors who are our clients, and we have to say to them, the mental health profession doesn't have strong enough techniques to help greatly. Suzanne Friedman showed that's not true. In fact, she got the strongest results ever recorded in the history of the social sciences when it comes to this grave injustice, you see. And it wasn't even on the radar. And so her study actually was transitional in mental health professionals accepting forgiveness therapy, where before that, that firestorm that kept hitting me was very real. It started quieting down because of that very study. And so labeling it, congratulations. It's amazing to do that. There is a next step called forgiveness that's been empirically verified through the American Psychological Association, but it's simply up to those who wish to go there. Some can't. They say, just thinking about this guy and even thinking about forgiveness, I can't. That's all right. Okay, there might be some part of forgiveness we see that we can work on, such as seeing your common humanity and that there might be more to this person than the act, this horrendous act. But some can, some can't. But for those who do, the science shows it's very helpful.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
How do we forgive a system? So how do we forgive an education system that was, set up to where it only serves a certain, I'm a teacher and a school board trustee. So that's my question. How do we teach forgiveness of a system to our students or to our teachers or to those who are inside the system? How do we make that productive, successful? How do we not multiply the injustices that are found in the system?
Yeah, well, I think you raise a profound question on which I have actually changed my thinking over time. I used to say, well, find the person who's hurt you and concretely try to forgive the person who's hurt you. And I actually teach a course at the University of Wisconsin for the Center for Educational Opportunity, CEO. And it's first generation students whose family has ever sent anyone to college. They're the first ones in. And a lot of times they come from poverty, minoritized backgrounds, okay? They come from African-American communities, Asian communities, and they have changed my mind on the answer. Because when they've asked that question to me now for 10 years, and I was like, well, find the person who hurt you. And they say, but there is something called the system here that goes well beyond anyone who's hurt me personally. And so I found a philosopher in Canada by the name of Trudy Govier, G-O-V-I-E-R, who talks about three kinds of forgiveness: primary, secondary, and tertiary. And primary is if you forgive me if I've hurt you directly. Secondary is if you forgive someone who's hurt a family member and that hurts you because you love the family member. And tertiary is someone who has not hurt you directly by coming to you and stealing from you, but has hurt you because of policy. She says that kind of forgiveness is totally reasonable, and I agree. So what we have to do is we're forgiving in the abstract. We're not forgiving a particular person for hurting me, but we are forgiving a system that has established norms in education and laws directly in the United States that have been totally against the humanity of certain people. How about slavery in the United States? Do you realize you'd be breaking the law to go against slavery in 1840? Okay, you'd actually be breaking the law if you didn't give into grave injustice, right? You and I can forgive those who have established laws that have still come down. The reverberations are still with us. We still feel the vibes. It hasn't been that long, okay? It's been what, 150 years? That's a blink of an eye in terms of how long humanity has been on this earth. So we can forgive those who we have never met and will never see because they're deceased, but we can release them from our resentment, which might give us more energy to fight the battle in a more rigorous way, you see. In fact, forgiveness is not caving into the system. It is helping us to fight more rigorously. I go against systems all the time. I just to share with you quickly, because I know we're almost out of time. I have given 14 talks in the Middle East at invitations. Guess how many times I've been yelled at? 14 times. My batting average is 1,000, 14 out of 14. And here's why. If I go into the Palestinian community, they will shout me down saying, you're here to represent Israel and get us to lie down and be crushed by their policies. I say, no, no, no. I've been invited in by the Palestinians, by your own people, because the leaders tell me that the resentment that's building up in your community is destroying individuals, families, and communities within your own region. And so maybe what you need to do is start thinking about forgiving within your community first. Don't talk about between yourself and Israel, that's too hard. But start within your community to build your forgiveness muscle and then see where that leads you. But in our case here, we know what's happening, and the tertiary forgiveness can definitely help. But for those who yell at that idea, I say start within your own individual family, your own community, and then decide for yourself how far you want to extend this. But you're absolutely right, and I'd encourage you to keep doing this, because that's one reason why I fly around the world every year.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bob. This was a great talk. I really appreciate you taking all the time and answering all the questions too. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you so much. I wish all of you the very best.
Thank you so, so much for coming and talking to us.
Oh, thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
And you're more than welcome to hang out, or we're just going to do a few quick little announcements before we're done with the day. So if you have other places to be, we don't mind sneaking out.
I have another obligation, so I just will wish you all the best. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Sending you warmth from California.
Thanks, I need it.
Yes.
All right, guys. Wow, that was great. Jamie, it's too bad Jamie missed this and she set this up.
It's recorded though. I'm going to make sure that she gets she's going to love that. Yeah, I'm going to make sure she gets the video.
Well, we're almost out of time. I wanted to say, I think Don, if he's still around. Yes, Don, are we doing a trash pickup this weekend?
Yes, thanks for bringing that up. This Sunday, 1:30, anybody who has a spare hour in the afternoon on Sunday, we're going to meet up over near the Foster's Freeze, right around there in Pinole on San Pablo Avenue, and spend a little time just picking things up and see what we can accomplish. So that's this Sunday, and I believe the plan is going to be from this point forward that we're going to do this perhaps once a month. So the next one, say for instance, on the last Sunday of every month. So the next one will be a month thereafter. But this Sunday, 1:30 in that neck of the woods. And if anybody has a wherewithal to, or has everybody's list on their email, if you want to send out a little email to help with that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I can do that. I don't mind.
Thanks.
I'll do that for you tonight. Yeah, perfect. So 1:30 Foster's Freeze. Let's do it. What else? I think our next meeting will be 5:30 next week, right? I don't know, Anna, do you want to wait, is this your friend? No. Jacqueline Rio. No, okay, just kidding. So for some reason I thought this was Anna's friend. So next meeting will be March 4th, next Thursday at 5:30. We're going to hear from someone who was a contestant on the Wheel of Fortune.
No, that's my friend, but she's not talking. This calendar says it's Anthony Tave.
I don't know what calendar I'm looking at then. All right. But it's 5:30, right?
Yeah, 5:30, and Jacqueline is busy that night, but she will talk to us someday.
Perfect. All right. So 5:30. I don't know if we have time to do happy dollars or anything because we're already over. Maybe we'll do it next time.
I'll just say that I'm gonna send some happy dollars because this educator is getting vaccinated on Saturday, and I'm
Yay! It's great. Let's hope.
Yay!
Yeah.
Hope more
Oh, hi,
people-
Devin.
Hello. Yay!
All right. Anyone else have any other comments or announcements?
If anyone's interested in Pinole environment and sustainability efforts, we're having our monthly meeting, Pinole Environment and Sustainability Task Force on Saturday at 10 a.m. I'm happy to send it to our list, but if anyone's specifically interested, just email me and I'll send you a personal invite.
Perfect. Great. All right, guys, I guess that's it for today. All right, see you next
Good
week.
job, Jill. Good job, Jill.
Go Jill.
First meeting, yeah.
Good job, Jill.
I love you guys.
Thanks, Jill.
All
Good
right,
rock.
see you
Have a good
Sunday.
one.
Bye.
Bye.
Good week.